Good morning. Today I want to talk about the astrology of fall 2023 and its impact in particular upon America. So let's see if I can share my screen and we can get started. Okay. It will take just a few minutes for me to get things ready here. All right. And we're good to go. Fall 2023 America. Now, the chart that I generally prefer for America is this July 2nd, 1776 chart for the passage of the Resolution for Independence. Other charts work too, but I think this one often works the best. And with a birth time of either noon or 11:50 a.m., it would have Libra rising. But because birth times of mundane charts aren't always known with such exactness, I tend to look at just a generic 0 degrees Aries rising chart. Okay, so this is the chart I use, but everything I say, most of it is going to apply to the various July 4th, 1776 charts that one might use. The only thing that changes is the position of the moon, which moves from 25 plus degrees Capricorn into Aquarius by July 4th. Okay, let's first look at some transits for fall of 2023 from September through December. And here I'm looking at conjunctions, squares, and oppositions first. We're coming off of a whole summer of having transiting Chiron, not exactly conjunct, but near conjunct natal Chiron. And we had something similar in the first part of the 1970s when we had transiting Chiron, first opposite natal Saturn and then conjunct natal Chiron. And that led to a lot of wounding, which manifested on the political level. The big story was Watergate, which led to the resignation of President Nixon, and Vice President Agnew had to resign for other transgressions. And of course, we also had Roe v. Wade became law, the law of the land during that period. That was a higher aspect of Chiron, where we granted women throughout the land the right to control their own bodies. Another higher aspect of Chiron during this period was the work of the Senate Select Committee to investigate Watergate. Okay, so we had a very near conjunction of transiting Chiron to natal Chiron all summer long. And this time around, the great political wounding has involved Donald Trump. And he was in the news for his transgressions, alleged transgressions, all summer long. This influence is fading for now, but other influences are waxing. Of course, in 2024, the impact of Chiron on America is going to be very, very strong. We'll have two exact conjunctions of transiting Chiron with natal Chiron in 2024, and the April 8th solar eclipse involving Sun, Moon, and Chiron is going to have a particular impact upon America, but I will be talking about that in another video on the astrology of 2024. Okay, let's see what else is going on this fall regarding conjunctions, squares, and oppositions. Well, throughout most of the fall, we have the transiting lunar nodes making squares to both Moon and Mercury. It looks like it's most intense in September when we have some days when it becomes exact. So there's going to be a little bit of tension in the air among Americans throughout the fall. If you watch my other video on the astrology of fall 2023 for the world, the lunar nodes are also going to be causing tension for the world in general, but we get an extra dose for America. The lunar nodes always intensify things, so there will be a certain intensity to life probably. Throughout the fall, it may be a little bit harder to unwind and relax. Now, one of the really big things happening in the fall is just as we're coming off of this near conjunction of transiting Chiron with natal Chiron, uh, another near conjunction of transiting Pluto with natal Pluto is getting very, very strong. It won't be exact, but it'll be pretty strong throughout most of the fall. And this conjunction of Pluto with Pluto, it was exact in recent years and has a lot to do internally with the political divide in our country, externally with threats from Russia and perhaps other countries. But we're going to see all of this revisited this fall, and it's already begun following the indictments of Donald Trump and with trials getting closer. The political divide is emerging again. And just yesterday, Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House, announced that all of these committees are going to be looking into impeaching President Biden for alleged crimes that at the moment they have no real evidence for. Well, maybe something will come up, maybe it won't, but it's just another example of the rebellion and dissension and divide that is in the country right now. Later in this fall, and this also is not going to be exact, but later in this fall, transiting Chiron will get close to an opposition with natal Saturn. And this is a time when we have to face our past karma, deal with our past transgressions. Uh, it is also a time when the country may undergo some wounding, more wounding. We have had this opposition exact in recent years, and issues such as slavery and all other sorts of transgressions by our country have been in the news, come to light, and also people have undergone more wounding from climate change and from mass shootings. Okay, and I don't have this one circled, but in late second half of November into December, transiting Jupiter will square the natal lunar nodes, and that could again increase intention and intensity of things in this country. Increase tension and intensity. Okay, now let's look at trines and sextiles during this period. And let me point out that astrology is not quite like mixing hot water with cold water and getting lukewarm water. It's more like a tossed salad. Uh, the veggies you like and the veggies you don't like can just sit there side by side. So even though we can expect things to get intense this fall, we can expect more threats from within and without, more political divide, and more wounding. We also have some good things going on. Some long-term good aspects, including Neptune sextile the moon, transiting Neptune trinatal Mercury, and transiting Uranus trinatal Neptune. Oh, and also up here, we still have natal Neptune sextile, transiting Neptune sextile natal Pluto. So a lot of the good aspects going on this fall, they involve Neptune. And that is our spirituality, and our inspiration. It's in Pisces where Neptune does well. Neptune dreams dreams very well while in Pisces. So we could say there are going to be people in this country who are going to be having visions and dreaming dreams and trying to bring those dreams into concrete reality, into actuality. Okay, we're also going to have a very favorable period around October and November. We have this very extended trine between Saturn and Venus. Saturn is in Pisces. It's also going to be trying to make these dreams and visions a concrete reality. Saturn builds structures. Venus is the pleasure principle. It represents what we like. It represents our values. And it also represents the right brain, that nonverbal perception of things. And it is in Cancer. Cancer is concerned with the home and with security. So this is very favorable for building any sort of structure which makes us feel better as a people, which assists us with our values and helps make us secure. I'm not talking per se about building walls on our southern border, but other sorts of structures, infrastructure, getting back to work, uh, making government work for the people again, things like that. Now, a shorter but still significant favorable period is going to be from about mid-October through mid-November when Jupiter makes a sextile to the Sun. Jupiter expands things. It represents growth. As such, it also represents luck. And this can be good not only for people in general, but also for the president, the head of our country, as represented in the USA chart by the Sun. So there are going to be some favorable things that will be probably strongest in October and November. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Here we're looking at semisextiles and quincunxes. The quincunx is a 150-degree aspect. The semisextile is a 30-degree aspect. Those aspects require adjustment, and as such, they help bring about change in things. And in September through early October, we have Jupiter making a quincunx to Saturn. Jupiter is in Taurus, which rules possessions and money, financial things. Saturn is in Libra, which has to do with relationships with people. And one possibility here is the government has to get a budget passed, right? We have to have talks about the budget, but it probably won't go smoothly because this isn't a quincunx. It's a type of inconjunct. So change and compromise will likely have to occur. This could also represent adjustments that we wind up making in our economic dealings with other countries. Now, the rest of the semisextiles and quincunxes take effect primarily in November and December. And let's see, what do we have here? We have Uranus making a semisextile to natal Chiron, transiting Uranus, making a semisextile to natal Mars. Jupiter making a semisextile to natal Uranus. Uranus is involved in all of these. So Uranus represents sudden and unexpected events. At its best, it's great creativity. At its worst, it's just like an earthquake, just everything breaking, just total chaos. But this says there may be a lot of unexpected events in the country in November and December. It might involve a wounding, since we have Chiron here. It might involve aggression or violence, since we have Mars here. And it just might be great unexpected events. It might involve financial things, since transiting Jupiter will be in Taurus. Okay, so probably some of this will work out negatively, but things could work out positively also. At its best, Chiron represents transcendence. Mars represents taking action. And with both Mars and Uranus and Gemini, this could be some good intellectual creativity. Nonetheless, it's also very likely that there will be some more violence or aggression of some sort, either physical or verbal, and maybe some kinds of rebellion or revolution. And then we also have transiting Pluto making an inconjunct to natal Venus. And it won't become exact this fall. Uh, when it does become exact, Pluto is in Aquarius, Venus is in Cancer, but Pluto is going to still be in the last part of Capricorn throughout the fall. This suggests uh, sort of a disconnect with people, individuals in power, and the people's needs, values, and wants. So there could be some more political disfaction during this period. Now, the other thing I want to look at very quickly are uh, conjunctions with midpoints. And we generally look at how transiting planets are conjuncting natal midpoints. We also look at how transiting midpoints between transiting planets might be conjunct or in opposition with natal planets. Well, with regard to the latter, nothing was going on involving the outer planets this fall. So we look just at transiting planets making conjunctions or oppositions to natal midpoints, and the ones which are really relevant here. It turns out for this fall, they're all going to be conjunctions. Now we're coming off of transiting Chiron conjunct the Sun Pluto midpoint. This was exact twice last summer, and they both happened around the time that Donald Trump got indictments. The Sun represents uh, the soul of the nation, usually a person who is the president or otherwise in power. Pluto represents great power and death and transformation. Chiron often manifests as wounding, though its real intent is transcendence. But this suggests wounding of an individual with great power. And hence, around the time of this conjunction last summer, we had indictments for Donald Trump. Well, this is waning now, but other midpoint configurations are coming into effect. And look at it, they all involve Chiron. Chiron conjunct the Sun Moon midpoint. This is exact in late September, so it's not that long after the fall equinox, and this can be wounding that is felt by the people, the sun and the moon, the leader and the people. Okay, and it will be intensified a bit by occurring somewhat close to the time of the fall equinox. And let's see, in November, we have transiting Chiron, conjunct the Jupiter Pluto midpoint. This is a little bit after a lunar eclipse that is going to occur, I believe, on October 28th. Jupiter is expansion, it's growth. Pluto is transformation. Chiron is either wounding or transcendence. At its best, this would be some very transcendent and powerful kind of growth. At its worst, Jupiter may just simply magnify the wounding of Chiron and the destruction of Pluto. So, this could be a little intense. In November, we have to keep an idea on what kinds of traumatic or transcendent events happen. Now, when we get into December, uh, we're getting closer to the winter solstice, and Chiron, transiting Chiron conjunct the moon Jupiter midpoint, that could affect the people in this country, and the growth of their fortunes, expansion of their fortunes. So, again, if you are tuned into the higher aspects of Chiron, this could be a wonderful time of transcendence. Otherwise, there may be some wounding involved. Now, the one that concerns me the most is this one, transiting Uranus conjunct the natal Mars Chiron midpoint. That is going to be exact on December 11th. The winter solstice is about 10 days after that. So that intensifies this uh, conjunction a bit. And each of these planets can easily manifest in negative ways. Uranus, sudden events, breaking things up. Mars, aggression and violence. Chiron, wounding. You put all these things together, and it could signal something rather ominous that might happen in America in December of this year. So it's a possibility. It's not a foregone conclusion. It doesn't have to happen. If with each of the aspects that we have talked about so far, if you always take the high road, look for the best way to respond to whatever's going on. If you hang on to your center instead of letting all the drama outside of you drag you into it, if you do all those things, then we can weather these storms quite well. But astrology is like a weather report. It tells you when storms are most likely. And rather than giving in to the storm, we have to prepare for them. Okay, let's move on now. Now, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what's going on with respect to America at the times of the fall equinox, a solar eclipse that will occur in mid-October, a lunar eclipse that will occur toward the end of October, and then the winter solstice in December. And as we look at these things, we're going to see certain patterns that endure throughout most of the fall. One of them is this transiting Pluto conjunct natal Pluto right here. That's going to be pretty much in effect throughout the fall. And this is intensifying the political divide uh, and threats from both within and without to our country. Next, we have transiting Chiron, conjunct natal Chiron, right here. It's a near conjunction. This will bring about a lot of wounding to some in the country, but transcendence and enlightenments to a few, to those who can respond to the higher aspect of Chiron. We've been going through this near conjunction all summer. It's caused a lot of political wounding involving Donald Trump. And we have also had a lot of climate change issues to deal with, which have caused suffering for a lot of people. And it may be just because I've been getting older, but I've noticed a lot of people I know, well, this summer they've been wounded, they've been ill, they've been dying, and some are dead. Hopefully, that's just due to my age and not something that you are also experiencing out there. As we go through the fall, Transing Chiron is moving retrograde. It's going to get out of orb with natal Chiron. Throughout, I'm using a 2-degree orb for everything, but as it moves out of orb of this conjunction with natal Chiron, it's going to get into orb with an opposition with natal Saturn. So that brings about more wounding and it dredges up our past karma and our past transgressions. Okay, next on my list, lunar nodes square natal moon and natal Mercury. So the lunar nodes here and here, they are making a square to natal moon here and to natal Mercury. And during the fall equinox, all of these are at 25 plus degrees of their respective signs. So what this does is it just intensifies things. Think of it as sort of like raising your blood pressure a little bit. It's a little harder to relax and unwind. And if you saw my video on the astrology of fall 2023 for the world, you know that the lunar nodes are affecting the world in general right now. So we're getting a double dose of this intensity, raising our blood pressure. But we also have some good things going on. Transiting Neptune, sextile natal Moon and Pluto in conjunction here, and trine natal Mercury down here. We have transiting Uranus over here in Taurus, financial things, trine natal Neptune over here in Virgo, practical implementation of visions. And so, as I mentioned earlier, Neptune is going to be very active in bringing about some positive things to this country. And so, in spite of all the difficulties, there are going to be uh, there are going to be some good things going on. There are going to be visions are being implemented. Okay. Well, guess what? We are in a Mercury retrograde period, and the mouse or the battery on my mouse just died. It looks like so. I'm going to see if I can just navigate using my touch screen. Okay, what else do we have here? We have transiting Jupiter, which in this chart wheel, it's down in the second house, circled with a green circle, in Taurus, and that is making that quincunx to natal Saturn in Libra, in the inner seventh house on this chart wheel. And that is probably going to play out in this country as adjustments and compromises that have to be made to get a budget passed. It may be some other stuff that comes up, but uh, budget battles look most likely right now, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, now, if we go on to the solar eclipse that's going to happen on October 14th, 2023, well, a lot of these same aspects are going to be in effect. We have transiting Pluto, still conjunct natal Pluto. That is on this chart wheel, that's in the 10th house near the cusp of the 11th house. So we have this ongoing rebelliousness, these ongoing threats to our country, both from within and without. We are still in the process of rebirthing ourselves, recreating ourselves, hopefully as uh, the democracy, the shining light for the rest of the world that we would like to be. And let's see, In this eclipse, we have transiting sun and moon. Since it's a solar eclipse, they're conjunct in Libra in the seventh house in this chart wheel. They're making a strong opposition to natal Chiron. Unfortunately, that suggests more wounding for the country. But if we all respond to the higher aspect of Chiron, then this can be transcendence. Chiron is in Aries. And the better side of that is it represents this individual spirituality and the transcendence and spiritual worth of every single individual. So find spirituality within yourself. Find your own unique spiritual path. And that can help all of this work out a little bit more positively. If, as a country as a whole, we don't respond to this call for spiritual transcendence, then our shell's going to have to be cracked and we'll be wounded. Okay, we also still have the lunar nodes square natal moon and natal Mercury, and that intensifies thoughts and feelings in this country, raises the blood pressure a little bit throughout the fall. And we still have transiting Neptune sextile, the natal Moon Pluto conjunction, and trine natal Mercury. So, oh, and the next thing I have on the list is transiting Uranus trine natal Neptune. Those aspects were active during the fall equinox. They're going to be active during the solar eclipse. So, this is still a good time for the people in this country who are visionaries to get some of those visions enacted. Even though we have some difficulties going on in the country now, we also have some good things represented by trines and sextiles, all the things you see circled in blue on this chart. And like I say, it's like a tossed salad. It's not like mixing hot water and cold water together to get lukewarm water. It's just a tossed salad where the good and the bad, they sit side by side. And so, in spite of everything, it's a good time for those who are dreaming dreams and having visions. It's a good time to bring those things into reality. And let's see, number 6 on my list, we have transiting Saturn. It's in this wheel, that's in the 12th house, near the cusp. It's it and both transiting Mars, which is in the 8th house of this wheel, they're both making a trine to natal Venus. So a natal planet and two transiting planets are coming together uh, to make a grand trine, and that is very, very good. Saturn in Pisces represents uh, dreaming these dreams and then making them physical structures. Uh, Mars represents action, getting things done. It's in Mercury, I'm sorry, and Mercury's not even a sign, it's in Scorpio. And that is a sign of great emotional intensity. Those emotions get even stronger with Mars there, but desire and vision to create structure will work together to do something which is going to be aligned with Venus, aligned with our values and our wishes for personal security. So there may be something going on then in this month or that could start in this month, which will help make people more secure, may affect the housing industry since Cancer represents the home. Things may happen which may make it easier for people to buy homes, for example. Okay, so we have political intensity, wounding going on in this month, but also some good things. at the time of this solar eclipse. Now, a couple of weeks later, on October 28th, we have a lunar eclipse. And again, there's going to be a lot of the same stuff going on. This stuff lasts all fall. We still have transing Pluto conjunct natal Pluto, transing lunar nodes square natal moon and natal Mercury, uh, transiting sun and transiting moon. However, this time are going to be squaring the lunar nodes, the natal lunar nodes. So we have sun at 5+ degrees Scorpio. And let's see, transiting moon at 5+ degrees Taurus. And our natal lunar nodal axis, the lunar nodes, are at 6+ degrees Aquarius and 6+ degrees Leo, respectively. So again, our collective blood pressure is going to get raised a bit this fall. Things are just going to feel somewhat intense, and it's going to be a little harder, most likely, to unwind and relax. Now, by the time we get to this lunar eclipse in late October, transiting Chiron, which is moving retrograde, it's going to be within that 2-degree orb of opposition to natal Saturn. It's actually slightly over 2 degrees away, but as we say, close enough for government work. So we're getting into that period where it's not only wounding we'll likely experience, but dealing with the nation's past karma, our past transgressions, whether that be slavery or something else that we're not very proud of. And let's see, by the time of this lunar eclipse on October 28th, we still have transiting Neptune sextile natal moon and Pluto and trinatal Mercury and transiting Uranus trinatal Neptune. So as I said, this period of dreams and visions uh, coming into our consciousness, being worked on to become reality, that's still in effect. And last but not least, we have transiting Jupiter, sextile natal Sun. This will last into November. And this is a very beneficial aspect. We've talked about this before. The Sun represents the soul of the nation and the president in particular. Jupiter is expansion, growth, and luck. So this usually represents something very favorable, something very pleasant. So once again, we have some good things sitting alongside some more intense things throughout fall 2023 for America. And Chiron tends to be prominent, which is probably going to result in some wounding. Okay. And let me move on to the next slide here. Okay, this is the winter solstice when Sun enters Capricorn. That's going to be on December 21st in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I am. What do we have going on? Well, transiting Pluto still within orb of a conjunction with natal Pluto. Transiting Chiron, still opposite natal Saturn. Transiting Jupiter, still square. Or I don't think we've had this one before, but transiting Jupiter at 5+ degrees Taurus, it's going to be squaring those natal lunar nodes. So again, throughout the fall, one way or another, we have either transiting lunar nodes or natal lunar nodes stimulating things, creating that feeling of intensity. One thing which is very important in this chart is we have transiting Mars opposite natal Mars, and that looks quite ominous. That could cause some violence, some aggression. And let's see, our transiting Sun and Mercury are also going to be opposite natal Venus. That is a pretty strong opposition. And that suggests there may be a disconnect between what people in power are doing, since Sun and Mercury are in Capricorn, and what the masses of America want, the values of middle America, Venus down there in Cancer. And we have transiting Neptune, still sextile natal Moon Pluto conjunction and trine the natal Mercury. So visions are still there. Uh, Even as bad stuff goes on, people can still come up with and will be coming up, I believe, with good visions, good dreams for the future. Okay, and the last thing here, transiting Mars trine natal Chiron. Well, because it's a trine, that means Mars and Chiron will be working together in a little bit more coordinated way. And that can help bring out the sweeter side of Chiron. It may help, instead of creating wounding, help create spiritual warriors. And this is important because if we go back to, let's see, the slide I had where we were showing some conjunctions with planetary midpoints. Here we are. In December 11th, we have Uranus conjunct the Saturn Chiron midpoint. And I was talking earlier about how ominous that looks. Well, if we're lucky, the trine between Mars and Chiron will help modify and ameliorate the impact of having transiting Uranus conjunct the natal Mars Chiron midpoint. If that is the case, then instead of getting some sudden wounding, we may get a little bit more sudden enlightenment. We may have spiritual warriors emerging, uh, people discovering new spiritual paths for themselves. I certainly hope we get the latter, the enlightenment and the transcendence, and a little less of the violence and the wounding. Okay, here's a recap of things. Not everything, but some of the more important things. And it looks like we have a near conjunction of transiting Pluto with natal Pluto. Throughout the fall will likely intensify the current political divide in the country, and we may also face challenges from abroad. Also, squares between the transiting lunar nodes and the natal moon and Mercury will create a sense of intensity that will last throughout the fall, but will be strongest in September. We have a near conjunction between transiting Chiron and natal Chiron that will fade in September, but a near opposition between transiting Chiron and natal Saturn will become stronger in November and December. Thus, more wounding to the nation from past actions is likely. Also, several long-lasting trines and sextiles involving Neptune will bring compassionate relief to many. And let's see, transiting Saturn trine natal Venus and transiting Jupiter sextile natal Venus, that is in mainly October and November, will bring in a period of some grace. And transiting Jupiter in Taurus, quincunx natal Saturn in Libra in September and early October could result in budget battles at home or economic adjustments abroad. Transiting Uranus and Taurus semisextile natal Chiron in Aries and natal Mars in Gemini could result in some wounding and increased tensions in November and December as people try to adjust to changing economic conditions. Okay, with transiting Chiron and Aries conjunct the Sun Moon midpoint on September 30, not far from the fall equinox, the American people could experience more wounding from violence, conditions related to global warming, or other conditions. Let me go back for a second to transiting Uranus and Taurus, semi-sextile Chiron in Aries, and natal Mars and Gemini. I'm not sure if I talked about that on my slide concerning um, the winter solstice. But let's see, if you look down in the second house on the outer wheel, you see transiting Uranus at 19 plus degrees Taurus. Looking at the inner wheel in the first house, you see natal Chiron at 20 plus degrees Aries. And in the third house, you have natal Mars at 19 plus degrees Gemini. Transiting Uranus, it's going to have to make some adjustments with both of those inner planets. And that can bring about a little bit of wounding or transcendence. And it could bring about a little bit of violence or active thinking, aggressive thoughts and ideas. Not bad aggression, but maybe good aggression. Thinking hard, thinking harder. Okay, so that's a little bit that could happen also in December. And let's get back to where we were. Let's see, I think we were down to with transiting Chiron in Aries. I think we read that one. We could experience more wounding from violence conditions related to global warming or other conditions. Okay, with transiting Uranus and Taurus conjunct the Mars Chiron midpoint on December 11th, not, that should say not far from the winter solstice, not fall. Not far from the winter solstice, the American people have an increased likelihood of experiencing violent wounding due to changing economic conditions or radical beliefs. And I don't have it in my summary because I was running out of room, but remember that transiting Mars is also going to be in opposition to natal Mars during December, during part of December, and that also increases the likelihood of violence. But with transiting Mars trine natal Chiron, that could lessen the negative impact of Uranus conjunct this Mars Chiron midpoint. Okay, what else? Well, with the Sun and Moon opposite natal Chiron, during the October 14th solar eclipse, more wounding for many Americans, but healing and transcendence for others is likely this fall. And lastly, several trines and sextiles throughout the fall will ameliorate tense conditions, but a near opposition of transiting Chiron to natal Saturn at the winter solstice increases the likelihood of wounding in December. So, again, in a nutshell, we have both good things and bad things going on this fall. We're going to have an ongoing intensity to things caused by aspects involving the lunar nodes. We have the most serious thing is probably that near conjunction of transiting Pluto with natal Pluto. Our country is still undergoing a bit of death and transformation, threats from within and from without, which we are already seeing intensify on the political scene. Chiron is very active this fall. That creates a greater potential for wounding, but also for healing and transcendence. And we have, due to some trines and sextiles, we'll have somewhat of a period of grace, hopefully in October and November. Things may be most active, however, in December. So that's the weather report. But how things actually work out, we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, let me see if I can end my sharing, even though my mouse isn't working. Okay, I did it. Fortunately, I've got a touch screen on my laptop. Also have a touchpad, so I could be using that also. And so that's it for the astrology for fall of 2023 as it impacts America. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope being forewarned is forearmed, that you um, avoid getting too caught up in the whirlwind, holding. I hope you hold on to your center, and I hope you always take the high road. So, may we all be our best selves this fall, be kind to others. And if we are, then we can avoid all the pitfalls out there, and good things can happen. So that's it for now. I hope to see you again in the future, but so long for now.